Sorry about that.
That's fine. And we are live. Good evening, everyone from South Africa. This is Misha Garrick, your hopefully somewhat familiar speculative fiction writer. And with me is London and Maria. You guys can maybe just quickly do a quick introduction for any strangers who might happen to find us on my in my highly optimistic fantasy world. So okay, so go ahead. You guys choose who wants to go first.
Okay. Hi, I'm London. I write young adult fiction, and that's my intro today.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Maria. I write fantasy and sci-fi for the young adult audience, and I am trying to dabble a little bit in thriller and in supernatural.
Cool.
Very cool.
So, what will you guys be working on tonight?
I'm working on the same story that I started during April's Camp Nano. I didn't get very far during camp, and then our last couple write-ins, I've been going through it and making a bunch of notes, but now I'm ready to start writing forward again, which I'm really excited about.
Very cool. And you, Maria?
Yeah, I will be working on the project that I had for Camp NaNoWriMo, the one that was about the witches, about the werewolf murders.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to get that done because I got my other, kind of like an unofficial second draft done on another draft, and I'm kind of excited for that. Although I did rush the ending a little bit, so I can't wait to change that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make that my priority right now. I'm going to put that aside and just not look at it for a while because I felt like yeah.
I continue. Do continue.
Well, because I technically it's how when you finish up an essay, where you start out beautifully and then towards the end it's just rushed and it's well, I'm just gonna put that aside for now.
Oh yeah. No, I know that feeling. I know exactly. But it's good to get some distance from it, so to take some time off is a good idea. Okay, so guys, I hope you don't mind, but we are going to have to go a bit shorter tonight because I have a thing that I have to go to tonight that I can't avoid. So instead of 19 minutes, it's going to be an hour, if that's possible. Okay, cool. Yeah, so tonight we wanted to talk a bit about the question of taking our time versus rushing. So I kind of just put it together in terms of should writers rush things. So that is, let's start with that kind of question. Where are you guys on the question of should writers push themselves to actually get things done faster, or should they just take their time? What do you guys think?
I'd say it depends on the writer's ultimate goals. Firstly, if your ultimate goal is to be published or to be published by a certain time or a certain age, probably you're gonna want to push yourself a bit. But if you're just doing it because you like writing and you don't really expect anybody to read it, or it's just for Wattpad, literally for fun, then maybe you don't feel the need to rush yourself as much.
Okay, and you, Maria, what do you think?
I kind of agree with London for a bit, but I think it all depends on the writers kind of how they write. I know some people who could be able to do who could be able to put in a certain amount of words in different time on different time slots.
Mm-hmm.
So I know people. So I think there's some people who will rush themselves just because that's that's what they can do. That's their time schedule or their preference. But I think it's kind of good to take some time because mostly just because this is a creative thing you're doing. This is oh gosh, I don't know. This is your intellectual child You want to like take your time with this. I'm so sorry. My dog, it wants attention. You might see him. I don't know. He's not coming up in like the screen, but well, it's just all about like, I think it's just all about like the writer's preference, but I prefer taking my time unless there is like a deadline involved.
Yeah, then you kind of don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think it depends on like what the writer, what he's trying to achieve and what they're capable of. But for me and personally, I'm more on the side of to me it's more important to do like balance. Just to do, you rush when you can rush, but otherwise you take your time and you because there are certain parts of the process that I think you can't really rush with. For example, like drafting, you're still finding your story unless you're a potter. But like when I'm rough drafting, I have no idea where I'm going, so I have no idea how long it's going to take me to get there. But other than that, I think it does have to do with. For me, I don't like to say, yeah, let's just chill out and not set myself any goals. But at the same time, I also don't want to push myself so hard that it's actually unhealthy, which is kind of a risk for me. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am at with that. So let me just see, because we had a lot of questions from London and from Jim as well. So let's see. Then I'm just quickly going through because we've answered some of the questions already. What do you guys think would be the pros and cons to taking your time or towards actually rushing to meet deadlines? What do you guys think about that? Like in terms of what's the positive and negatives of doing that?
Well, for me, I think obviously if you are trying to be published, or say you have a deal already, or if you're really serious about getting into the industry, I think it's definitely a pro to go a little quicker or to push yourself to your own personal creative limit, so that you can meet those kind of deadlines that are maybe put on you to do that. Sometimes I'm assuming, because I'm not published yet, I'm not out there trying to do that yet, I'm assuming that, only so much is in your control, the writing, but you're probably asked to like go at a certain pace or to be done by a certain time, so you should go at a certain pace. So it would be a pro to get finished on time to meet those deadlines if you're asked to.
Yeah, I think that's definitely when I had a publishing deal, they kind of told me that I had to split my book into two, and then they basically told me that, well, all the edits and the publishing has to be done in like 6 months. Oof. So yeah, so that was kind of like, but for me it wasn't that bad because I already knew what I was going to do by that time, so it wasn't that impossible. But it does have benefits, I think, to get into a frame of mind where you can say, okay, I'm not going to rush myself necessarily, but I do want to have something done by this date. Even if it's just to say, well, I want to get done with revisions by this date. But it's not always practical, I find. So
probably.
What do you think, Maria?
I think the pros and cons fall in the storytelling, like how the story is being told. Mostly, I think it's like I can see the pros into going slow, that you take time to know your story, that you could be able to like actually like go through and look with a clear mind, like, or I don't know how clear the mind is when you're writing, but like you're going through like, okay, like you can like pick up the stuff that you left off. Like maybe you just found like something that hasn't gotten tied up. or like a character arc was left stopped in the middle. You're able to get to that. However, I don't know if anybody has this problem, but I know I do. If you take your time, then that just allows you to procrastinate more.
Yes.
I'm a slow writer, and I say, "Oh, I'm gonna get to this tomorrow," and then I have like 20 other things to do, and then it's like, "Oh, let's do this another day." So like slow writing, yeah, it's more. You could be able to get a better story out of it, but like you are probably just gonna put it aside. Fast writing, you're able to like set down your work, you're able to figure out everything. However, it can make your story feel rushed. I know we live in a current time where writing is getting rushed. That's mostly what I'm hearing about things like Game of Thrones, which sucks, by the way. There's I like to get storytelling from like other things like video games. Like so like I pay attention to like story, like do I say like, okay, did they wrap up this or did they wrap up that? So if you quicken it, you're gonna get a good idea of where the story is, but you're probably gonna miss stuff and you're probably gonna make the reader feel like you're rushed. Like they're gonna feel rushed, you're gonna feel rushed, everyone's not gonna be happy.
That's some really good points. I read a story by a friend who did end up publishing, but the story was amazing. I really loved acting. I was like one of her like number one fans. Just I wanted to read as soon as she had a chapter out. But the last couple chapters, the way that she wrapped it up, it seemed so rushed. It seemed so incomplete, and it felt like there should be 10 more chapters rather than only 3 that it ended. And I could tell that she had just quickly said, okay, this is what I want to happen, so I'm just going to spill it out really quick instead of give you like the juicy details to make you feel fulfilled.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like how it is for my story. Like the one I just finished, or at least the second draft I finished, I like rushed it quickly because I wanted to get done with it. I was like, okay, I just want to get that completion done. But like, how do you like know the difference between like rushing the ending and like dragging it out too far? Because I know there's like that middle ground, but that middle ground is just kind of like a hard middle ground for me.
I'd say beta readers for sure. If you have a good amount of beta readers, they'll let you know, and you don't ask them as a lot. You know, you ask them individually, and as a lot. If a lot of your feedback is coming back, this feels rushed, or this feels too dragged out, like. Literally, that can help you find that balance, and you can just keep sending the chapters back to those betas until you're like, does this feel like satisfying to you to read?
I guess that could work.
Yeah, it really does. I do that as well. That's actually the only real way that I've found that you can reliably find like pacing issues and stuff like that is to actually have people read it, because even if they say something like there's something off about this story but I can't put my finger on it, then it's usually just it's pacing. But when someone says something, you know, it's oh, you know, this ending isn't very satisfying because it feels like it just rushed through it instead of going through all the steps, then you know, so they do actually tell you. It's I subscribe with regards to that. I think it's Stephen King in his book on writing. By the way, if you haven't read it, you have to read it. It's like you have to read it. But basically, he said, "No, really do. It gives you a lot of like really good advice on this stuff." So, but like what he says is that you get, let's say, 5 beta readers, or you get like a lot, or however many. And if half of them say that different things about any one thing, or they highlight something and the other people don't point it out, then you can kind of weigh up what people are saying and decide whether or not it's valid. But if all of them unanimously point something out as a problem, then you know there's something that you have to actually consider as a problem. So I kind of follow that advice quite closely, although I do take into account that certain beta readers will have certain focuses and they will have certain skills. So, for example, one guy will say, this dialogue doesn't feel natural, but his knack is to write dialogue. So even if it's the only guy who's going to say that, I'm going to listen to him because he will know that is a problem because he has that technical feeling for it, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's see. Next question. As an unheard of writer, do you feel the need to hurry up to keep up and be heard amongst all the more known authors, or do you take your time, knowing your time will come, and if you are patient with your art?
For me personally, when I was posting regularly on Wattpad, because it was just kind of the only way to get my stuff out there, I did feel this need to kind of hurry so that I can make sure I had regular updates, because you have to, it's part of the algorithm to be seen on Wattpad. And I wouldn't say that it affected my writing negatively. I would say that in the long term, though, I couldn't keep up that pace consistently. And so it turned into just stopping completely at one point and not getting back to it for like 6 months. And then when I did, I lost a lot of readership and I tried to build some back up, and it's just not the same thing. So for me personally, I don't know how worth it is if I try to rush and hurry to kind of keep up with a fast pace for readers' demand. I also, like, on something Maria had mentioned earlier, like, when I don't try, I find that I allow myself to, like, not write for 6 months, which is not necessarily a good thing. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, I'm on Wattpad as well. I had a pretty good sci-fi on it that had a lot of readerships. Though I do think that the other reason why I had a lot of readerships was because I had it on the Wattpad science fiction reading list. Like, I was able to submit it, and they were like, "Yeah, you can like be able to keep it." No, wait, I don't think it was science fiction. I think it was something else. But that's how I was able to get readership. But because I had this need to like continue the story, I was feeling a little bit rushed. And yeah, I have done the same thing where I just fell out of it, accidentally deleted it because I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna restart it, and was like, that's probably not a good idea. And right now I only have like a novella that I have yet to finish on it, a short story that's already finished, and everything else I'm avoiding to post on Wattpad yet because I want to have like that consistency. But for now, like, I'm just taking like my time / rushing a little bit every now and then. But like because I don't have that Wattpad, like that looming algorithm that they have, I can be able to like take my time.
Yeah, I'm actually also on Wattpad, and I kind of, what I did also for a long time, although I haven't done this in a while because I've been so busy, but I did get involved like with their, do you know about like their improve your writing clubs and stuff like that, so that I could like give advice to other writers. And a lot of them, I noticed, like really got stressed out because of, posting every day, and I have to write, and I have to be productive, and I have to do this, and I have to, and it feels like they like Wattpad, and I don't think Wattpad does it on purpose. I think it's more just like an unfortunate side effect of their algorithm and the way it works. But it does feel like, in a sense, that it's almost making people put themselves into this process of turning their book writing into a meat grinder, if I can put it that way. It's just
and that's not just the Wattpad algorithm. That's almost every algorithm out there. Like, I remember the same thing happening with Instagram, because I have an art account, and I remember that there was a lot of people complaining that they needed to be seen. They didn't need to be seen, but they were like, well, because we have lives, and we're not going to be able to produce art all the time. the algorithm is just going to put us at the bottom. I heard that Twitter has an algorithm that's similar to that. Like, we're living in like a world where like we have to constantly be on the internet. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that the algorithms are kind of horrible.
No, absolutely, because that's also part of the reason why we have something along the lines of minimum viable product publishing these days, because it's the Amazon algorithm that pushes people to think that if they don't publish every 3 months, that they won't be seen by the algorithm, and because of that, they push harder to write. And we've talked about this a few times, and it's if that is the way you want to do it, then it's a legitimate way to do it, I guess. I mean, but for me, given the way that I am personally, I just can't see myself doing that, because I can't put myself under that kind of pressure cooker situation and actually feel like I'm going to be able to do this in a sustainable long-term career.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's the same thing for me with Wattpad, because then when people do say like, oh my goodness, people aren't doing, they're not coming back because I'm not publishing often enough, then I kind of do ask them, if you can't sustain the pace to actually get your fandom, it's probably a more more strategic idea to actually just write it first and then post it every week, once a week.
That's what I'm doing.
1,000 words, yeah, because that's what I did, actually, I have to say. I published my books already before I started publishing on Wattpad, and I posted once a week, and no stress whatsoever, because it's literally just copy pasting into the Wattpad designer window. And I basically got to the point where before I got featured, I already had 20,000 reads.
Wow.
So so that's really, I mean, it's not even, but it's just to get back from that, oh my gosh, kind of thing, to just, okay, let me focus on creating first, and then if I'm on Wattpad for feedback, then I can put it on for feedback. But there's no real point to actually pushing myself and writing myself into the corner, because if I'm going to, the thing with Wattpad is it's very good for feedback, but it's almost like, it feels to me like if you're getting feedback while you're writing still, and you aren't even finished with your book, so you don't even really know the direction of where you're going, it's like you set the candle on fire on both ends. And I think that's kind of, it is going to stress you out. It's a natural thing. So that's kind of, it's something that I've found a lot. And so I agree with saying, listen, we need deadlines, but there also needs to be, a kind of, cutting yourself a little bit of slack, so that it's not completely destructive. But yeah, I'm just jumping quickly, because I checked out our YouTube page and our chat for today, and we actually have some viewers, so it's like, yeah, my goodness, but it's like I have a very strong imagination going on or something. But yeah, so Amanda dropped by to just say she's going to probably catch this on replay, because she's filming 3 videos today. You go, Amanda, you are awesome. I am following your example soon. I actually want to tell you guys about it, but I'll get it back to that. Jennifer says, I know personally I can't push myself to get too much done quickly, because I burn out and then do nothing at all. I'm much more of a slow and steady wins the race kind of person. Yeah, I know that feeling as well. I kind of also, I tend to, if I push myself too far, and then I instantly regret it. And then, and then Jennifer says, and on that note, I need to get going. I'll catch up with the live stream later. So yeah, unfortunately we missed her. And then Amanda says, life has been crazy, hoping things will slow down a bit once summer hits. And yeah, right, both kids will be home all day. Yes. Good luck, Amanda, really, seriously, especially with trying to film in between all the chaos. That's going to be fun and interesting for you to go through. And then Sarah, one of my old contacts from previous writings that I have been part of, has dropped in and said hi. And she says, I think it's good for people to push themselves, but the amount of pushing is very personal. And I have really gotten emotionally unstable because of pushing too hard. So sorry, what did you want to say, London?
I was just saying, like, that's a good point. That's something I touched on, I think it was last week when we were kind of going through this. Like, we're sensitive, creative people, and our feelings are what help us to make art and to write things that are able to capture people's imaginations and help them to, see the scene, is because we felt all the things that you need to feel in order to create this scene and these characters, and we really get into it. So when we try to do something that's against our grain as creative people and to follow this type A, everything ruled by an algorithm, and try to keep up with being like heard and being the most popular, and even just clawing up to even be like the 100th person to be heard, it's so draining, and it will affect us emotionally, and it can kind of confuse like why am I doing this anymore, and then it makes us want to give up, and like that's too much to keep up with. I'm just gonna like take a few months to just not write, and to kind of get myself back to being like just healthy mentally and emotionally.
No, absolutely. It's something that I've been thinking about as well, because it's London and I actually talked about it a bit offline before we got started, but I've not really been kind to myself for basically since the beginning of the year. So it's actually very nice that we are planning to talk about self-care as a writer next week, but just as an idea, that just in terms of productivity, I don't think I don't think it's actually productive to be super productive. If it doesn't, because it's if I can tell myself, okay, I'm going to write 4,000 words today, and tomorrow, and the day after that, and I can do that, and then I will have written 12,000 words, and I'm burned out, and I take a week to recover. Or I can write 1,000 words a day, every day, for months at a time, and get to 90,000 words without ever burning out. So what is actually, how much are you actually winning by pushing yourself so far that it's actually harming you to the point where you're burning out for whatever reason? That's kind of where I'm kind of having to think about that, because I've really been on that thing of saying, no, but I have to do my work, and I have to get my work stuff, but I have to do this and I have to do that. And then it just gets into such a vicious cycle in the end, that in the end, I've kind of just gotten to this point where I'm like, you know what, I can't live this way anymore. I really have to change something now, because this isn't healthy. And so it's something that's really close to my heart at the moment, because this week especially, I really felt it like in my skin, if I can put it that way. It really touched me in a really direct and not very nice way. So I think for me, it's definitely, there has to be a balance of saying, well, we don't want to slack off completely, but we don't want to say, we don't want to be turned into our own slave drivers, and get ourselves to what Sarah said, to a point where we are emotionally unstable because of pushing ourselves so hard. Because that's obviously, I mean, from what everybody is saying that have been in these trenches, I think it's kind of like a common thread, that this idea of pushing ourselves so hard is actually something that comes up all the time. And it's not really healthy. I honestly don't think it's healthy. You can push, but not too hard. Too hard is always going to be, it's not going to be a healthy thing.
What sometimes I think about? Kind of like how you mentioned writing all your stuff, and then how you like post it one chapter at a time on Wattpad after you've completed it, like, so you don't have to worry. Sometimes I think I'm just going to write all the books I want to write, and then when I die, somebody will publish them, and I'll get really famous.
Wait, so are you saying that you want to be like Vincent van Gogh with all his artwork? You want to?
It's easier. It's easier to take.
want to do all these great stuff, and then when you die, everyone's like, "Oh, this is a great person. I wish we knew them when they were alive."
I wish we could have told him so that he didn't just like kill himself, or something.
Don't kill yourself, but like.
No, I'll just avoid them. Save them in the attic.
No, but on a more like serious note as well, is that like it's just it's absolutely. I've also considered just to say, you know what, I'm just going to write and not publish anything. Unfortunately, I kind of missed that point because when you've had like you've been featured, so now you actually have people waiting for you to actually finish the next book. So and that's another
a good point too, because when I just stopped writing, I mean, you're leaving all those readers, and literally just touching on what Sarah said, like for your own emotional stability, you just kind of got to forget about it. And it's a little bit easy because it's just numbers, you don't see them as like 300 personal people that are reading your story. Just like, okay, it's a number. And then now there's no people reading it, or there's 10 people reading it. And I'm like, it's just a number. It's more important to me to be like, well, how do I feel? Like maybe they're not getting their chapter every week, but my sanity is more important than meeting their deadline, even if it's not an important one.
Also, for me, I totally understand that. Yeah, it's just a number. It's about your self-care. I think also for me, it's more of like, I don't care much for the quantity of readers. I care for the quality of readers. Like, what are they getting out of this? Because when I started to take writing a lot more seriously, I wanted it to be for like, so readers can actually like get really involved with my characters, like root for these different types of people, find an emotional attachment, like really get into it. Like if it's just like 5 people, I don't really care that much. Just 5 people who are very invested in the story. But self-care is a big one. Yeah. I just wanted to put that out there because like that's something that I just feel more proud of.
I like it. But it is important to have readers that really care about what you're writing, or else what's the point? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, also, I mean, for me as well, okay, let's be honest. If I had 2 million fans, I would not say, oh, damn, I have 2 million fans, I would say, yay, but I would, at the same breath, in the same breath, sorry, my English is all over the place tonight, but in the same breath, I agree that I would rather have like 200 really, really, really passionate fans who really love what I've written and who are, who would follow me anywhere, in a sense, if I put it that way. If I put out something different, they'll still read it because it's me who wrote it. But that's the kind of people I'm trying to gather and cultivate, because I think they're the guys who actually also tell other people about your books. They're the people, the word of mouth marketing. Those are your core little mini marketers, if I can put it that. Yeah, and so I would rather have that than 2,000 people who are like, yeah, this is awesome. But then when it actually comes down to like getting to a real point of saying, well, are you with me or what? And then there's just nobody. So that's kind of where I'm with as well about the fans. But I kind of feel fortunate that I feel like I do have that already, having read like from the comments that people have left at the end of the books. And I put my books out for free, and then some of those guys are seriously going, and after reading the full books, just because they want to support me, they buy the books on Amazon, or they go and they support me on Patreon. So that's kind of, those are my, they're my solid. I love them. They are awesome. And I'm getting all teary just thinking about them, but it's just like, that's the kind of love you kind of get from people, and those are the people that, of everybody, that I really don't want to let down. So And then it starts getting to that, like, oh gosh, I'm letting them down. I'm already late. I'm already, that kind of, that's bad. But I also feel that,
Sorry.
it's fine. If you, it's live, live, baby, we're live. But like, for me, it's this thing of, I would rather disappoint them a little by saying, listen, I'm going to have to take a while longer than expected to get this out, but please trust me and know that when this is done, it's going to be the best thing I have been capable of creating for you guys. As opposed to going 6 months, I'm getting this done in 6 months. It doesn't matter what happens. You guys are going to read it in 6 months, but then it's rushed, it's incomplete, it's got plot holes, it's not edited probably. That's kind of my thing, is that I realized that their idea of like what would really disappoint a reader isn't necessarily how long it takes if they really care about you as a writer, but more about how whether or not you betrayed their trust by not delivering something that's up to a high standard. I feel.
For me, I feel like I've undergone a sort of well, I just had the word and it slipped from my brain. Oh, paralysis, like a writing paralysis from the algorithms and the idea of what I would like to accomplish and how realistic the goals are. And then I try to make them more realistic. And then I like get to this point where I'm like, the weight is just too big. And my realistic goals are so low now that I'm like, I just have this paralysis, not to stop writing completely, but to stop trying to get out there completely, because it doesn't seem like it's an environment conducive for my special soft spirit. It is too much for me. So that's kind of like why I've got that fantasy of I'm just going to write everything. And one day when I die, hopefully somebody will notice it. I don't know. So
tell your husband to do it.
I'm in this place where I'm deciding what are my new goals. I need to create some realistic goals that won't have me waiting until I'm dead to get out there.
Yes. No, absolutely. And for me as well, right now it's kind of frustrating for me, the fact that I have to actually even say this, because this is something I've learned like almost a decade ago already. But now, it's a systemic change that you have to make in order to think. It's a real mind shift in order to think, I want to chase down goals. I want to achieve goals. I want to be determined about achieving my goals. But at the same time, I'm not risking my mental health or any health, regardless of whether it's mental or physical or whatever, to achieve those goals.
Yeah, we all know as writers we could write for hours, forget to eat, forget to shower, forget to sleep.
Yeah.
I gave myself a ganglion cyst on this palm, on this hand, just because of how much I was writing.
Oh my
so that was kind of like a wake-up call, but then luckily it went away. But it's just, that kind of made me realize, because it's just, if you realize something isn't, you have to kind of learn how to be adaptive. Even if you have a goal, there is actually more than one way to get to a goal. Even if it's to be a successful writer, it's not necessarily that someone else's advice for how to become a successful writer is the valid way that you should be taking, because you are a different person from that person. So I think that's also a really important when we talk about pushing. It's like, yes, push where you can, but don't push where you shouldn't be pushing. And sometimes test yourself and push your boundaries a little bit, because you do surprise yourself. But you have to be careful about how you do it, because if you do, if you know where your boundaries are and you decide to push your boundaries a little, you're doing it without expectation. But when you have expectation associated with that, of like saying, well, other people write 5,000 words a day, so I should be able to do that as well. No, not necessarily. You might have children. You might have, a problem with your hand. You might have,
College work.
hours. Yeah, college work. All that kind of stuff. It makes you a different situation entirely. So when people ask me, and they ask me quite a lot, like I'm on places like Quora as well, where they ask me questions about writing, and then it's like, how should I do this? Should I plot or should I pants? And then it's like, well, and it comes down to the same thing with pushing yourself as well. Should I be writing every day, or should I just be writing once a week? And then it's like, well, the valid way to write a book is the way that gets you to finish the book. That's basically, if you're pushing yourself so hard that you can't finish a book because you're burning yourself out before you get halfway through your like manuscript length, that's not your valid way to finish a book.
Yeah.
You have to find a different way. And that's kind of something I think we kind of start thinking about more as writers, is to think about, like, we should focus on finishing books,
but what works best for me, like, yeah,
because I don't, it's like we talked about this a little bit last week as well, but I don't want to ever be in a situation where I look into my future and wonder, is this it? Is this the life I'm living? Is this really what the rest of my life is looking like? And the fact of the matter is, I've realized that by pushing myself as hard as I've been pushing, it's started feeling like I'm in a hamster wheel, and I'm running the whole time, and I'm making myself really exhausted, but it's just feeling like I'm not going anywhere. And it's not because I'm not going anywhere, it's just literally that I haven't actually stood still long enough to look around me and just actually realize how far I've come.
Yeah.
And that is a massive thing, guys. That's like almost a terrifying thing, to realize that I'm wasting my life by, just not looking around me and noticing what's going on. And that part of it is probably the biggest con of pushing yourself too fast and too far, because if you push yourself that much, it's not just that it's unhealthy, but you kind of miss your own life.
Yeah, you're not like in the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to be present in your life, which is probably difficult for writers in the first place, just because we're caught up in our stories, we're caught up in our imagination. We're living half reality and half fiction in our brains.
No, absolutely, and I think that's a big part of the challenge of being a writer sometimes, is that we don't, we should be able to immerse ourselves fully in our writing, otherwise we wouldn't be able to write immersive fiction for other people to read. But at the same time, we shouldn't be so fully immersed that we kind of forget that we should be living our own lives as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's hard, but that's kind of the big thing.
We have a comment.
Is there a comment?
Yes, and Amber F. Craft.
Oh, hello, Amber. Welcome to our live stream. I'm really glad you guys decided to join me. Or join us. Sorry, join us. So she says, the hamster wheel is the way I feel when I edit. I push until I'm dead to get done, but it isn't good for my health. Yeah, I know that that's actually a very common issue that writers have, because they kind of go loose and free with their writing, saying, I'm going to get there when I get there. I'm going to get to the end when the book is done. And so if it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. But then suddenly the writers start having this thing about, no, but I should be getting through this book this fast. And the thing is that editing is actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
So people don't really realize it, but editing is I'm going to curse sometimes, so forgive me, but it's a bit of a son of a bitch. So it's just like, it's not as easy as people think it is, and so they underestimate it, and then that's when it starts kicking their backsides, because it's just like people think that they can schedule it the way they schedule normal work, of saying, okay, I'm going to edit for 5 hours, or I'm going to edit, I have a 500-page book. I want to get this done in 30 days. So I'm going to be editing about, let's say, 20 pages. And then I have a few extra days in case I want to go back and do anything else. And I think people make a mistake with that. I don't know if that's kind of what you do, Amber, but I've done that, and it's not a healthy thing to do. So when I edit, I kind of try to give myself at least 3 months to get through a big edit, especially if it's revisions.
Yeah, because it's just the same concept of rushing versus taking your time. Editing takes a lot of work. If you rush it, you can tell you're missing a lot of things along the line that you could be editing to make the story better.
Yeah, and also, I mean, not to put too much, even more pressure on Amber here, who is now she's for editing.
Sorry, Amber.
But,
Hello, Amber.
If you get editing wrong, you can actually destroy your book. So rushing isn't really the best strategy, and pushing too hard, too fast isn't, because if you lose your ability, what do you call it? Your judgment. If you make an error of judgment when you're editing, you could actually take out something that is actually really important to your book, and that's also like a really dangerous thing, because then you kind of get to the end of their book and you hate it because it's not the book that you envisaged. But
she said that she did that with her first one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Amber. That is horrible. I know exactly. It's happened to me as well. It's actually what I used to do, actually, was I was so perfectionistic that when I was drafting, I would edit as I draft. And then I couldn't. That's one of the reasons why it took me like 7 books to actually draft, because every time, like by the time I got halfway through my book, my entire book would just fall apart. And I wouldn't know why. And then later on, I realized that it's actually every time I edited as I went along, all these little imperfections I was taking out, they were in fact the things that were making the book work, but I just didn't know why and how that was. And so I was really just damaging my own work as I was editing. So it's definitely something, it's a skill you have to learn, but it's just, I think, for me anyway, I have to mention, I actually love editing. It's one of my favorite phases. But like, it is really important to not push so hard that you're not actually able to say, you know what, today I'm not going to edit because I want to think about this. I need to consider what I'm doing here, because this might have a massive impact on what I'm doing in the future.
Yep.
So yeah. Amber says, now I'm writing the 4th while editing the 3rd, and I pulled the first to do a massive overall article. Amber, that's a lot of juggling you're doing, but you have my full respect. That is some higher level stuff you're busy with at the moment. I've tried that and I haven't been able to succeed with it, because I've had, what happened with me was I started writing book 3 in my War of 6 Crowns series while I was splitting book 1 and book 2. And the problem with that was that after the split, I had to revise book 1 while revising book 2 while writing book 3. So the problem with this was changes I made in book 1 were so big that they changed a lot of stuff in book 2. But I left that off a little bit, and then by the time book 1 was published, that's now basically set in stone. And then I had to go and edit book 2. So I edited and revised book 2. And then by the time I was done with book 2, I had to stop because my book 3 was no longer
relevant.
Relevant at all. It was completely like it might as well have been fan fiction, because it had no immediate relationship to the second book. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I rewrote it. And then I kind of just, so that's part of the reason why book 3 has taken so long for me to get through, because usually I have one rough draft, one rewrite, and then I do revisions and edits and it's done. But because of the way that I chose to do the edits and the rewrites together, I've had to rewrite that book. And when I say rewrite, redraft, just a rough draft, I had to write 4 rough drafts, and I've had to rewrite it twice, and now I'm only getting to revisions, and it's taken me 3 years.
Really quick on that. How was that really discouraging for you? I mean, writing a draft 4 different times, that's scary.
That can do things to you. I mean, 4 drafts, Jesus.
Well, it's not this one. It's like I'm fine. I have nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. It didn't affect me at all. But on the positive side, I don't really see anything I've ever written as a waste. So even if I bin something, I've learned, like, from those failed drafts, I've learned things about my characters. I've learned to get to know them better. I've learned how they act in certain situations. And I did, in the end, take a lot of those things that I did throw out with those books. I did take plot points from those books that I really liked and put that into my draft. So it's not like, even if I did decide, you know what, I can't use this draft in this form, I did actually still write something that's an improvement because of the fact that I did actually go through it. So I did actually learn even more from going through that experience. But even so, it is, by the time I realized I had to do yet another rewrite, I'm like, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just now like curious about this because you said that your process was you write it and then you like rewrite everything. Like, how much of a rewrite do you like? How much do you change? Because this is kind of similar to what I just went through with my draft. Like, it went through like a kind of like I wrote it out, or at least I wrote it to like a certain chapter, then realized I need an outline, then rewrote everything, and now I feel like I want to rewrite it all. Like, I think I just want to change everything.
I did that before.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to say, when I rough draft, I write by hand. So I take a pen and I take a book and I literally write it out.
Me too.
Yeah, because that was basically because I realized that if I'm rough drafting while I'm typing, that is when I start killing my book by editing while I write. So when I write in pen, I can't go back and take something out. I just have to roll with the punches and see what it means.
That makes
yeah, you can continue it, but no. So for me, that was like yeah. So that's kind of where I got into this thing of I'm forcing myself to write and not edit. And the interesting thing is that those surprising things like walk-on characters and random stuff that someone says and a strange decision this guy makes that is going to throw it in a loophole that isn't on my idea of what should have been happening in a book. Those things are the things that actually make the book good, because those are usually the things that actually pay off in like a massive way, even in unexpected ways. But that's what makes the book come alive. Yeah. So that's kind of for me why I write by hand, and then obviously to get it to the point where I can actually edit it, you have to rewrite it. But now, because I have to do it anyway, I don't rewrite word by word. I don't go through the book and just copy everything word like that. So what I do is I basically take like a month off from the book, and then I open it up and reread it as if it's not me that wrote it. And then I basically give myself a self-critique. So I'll say like, okay, this is good. I really like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. But this would work better if I did it this way. If not we did it, but if this was like, for example, if I ramped up the conflict a little bit more, or showed the stakes here, made sure that the antagonist makes a showing a bit earlier in the book, that kind of stuff. So I take all my favorite scenes and then I basically create a plot from that. So I'm kind of a hybrid. I'm a plotter and a pantser, because I draft without plotting, but then when I do the rewrite, I use the draft as the backbone of my plot. And then what I do is I actually rewrite the whole thing just from my memory. If it's really good, if a scene in my rough draft was really good, it will come back as I'm writing it again. And otherwise, it's usually just an improvement on it, because the reason why I do it this way is that I don't want just another version of my rough draft. I want an improved version of my rough draft. So it's always looking for ways in which I'm improving. So it's more of yeah, I had to help someone do that. And it's really scary for someone to say, rewrite all of it. But
this is actually touching on something that I'd love to talk about one of our weeks. Maybe I'll stick it in the chat so you guys can decide if you like it. But I always wonder when you're editing, you get a little bit more critical, like how you're mentioning. You ever feel like you're kind of taking some of the magic out as you edit? Because the first time through is just like word vomit, you know, but your imagination is just like extremely colorful the first time through. And then the second time through, I feel like I get really almost like I turn into a business person, like taking apart my story, and it becomes almost robotic sounding. And I feel like I lose magical essence, and I don't know, it gets rigid. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, but one thing I learned this from Tumblr. Somebody had posted it, and I do not have it with me right now. I'm just gonna have to give a very a shout out to whoever said that later on. But I remember that one person that this person said was have a draft notebook, and it's where as you're writing out the story, if you have any changes, want to do any changes, or if you want to do any you want to if you have any thoughts about something, you want to do something or take something out, you write it in that journal, date it, write it down, and then just continue writing. Though I think it's better to do it by paper, all of it by paper, because then you can't take it back. You could just have a little section of the journal where it's oh, note to self, reread this scene, or just make sure if it looks good after a month or so. That's just something I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, I do make notes on the side usually because I do Google Docs, and I'll just highlight it, make a note of what I need to edit later, and then I'll keep writing. But still, as I go in and start my second draft and I start making changes, it still feels, and then of course the third edit and the fourth edit and so forth, I feel like, I mean, the story is still really beautiful. There's still the foundation, but the words themselves, they're not so full paragraphs of just kind of run-on sentences of just, your mind going crazy. It's more like these perfectly put together sentences, but everything looks really robotic when I edit it. So maybe it's just something, I don't know, that I experienced.
Maybe.
I hope it's not going to sound attacking, but that is actually a real symptom of over-editing. Yeah, that's when I talked about when you edit so much that you're taking you're harming and damaging your book. That's what I'm talking about. That you're trying to make it
too much.
Yeah.
Wait, is this to me or is this to London? Because I mean, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just very confused.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, and this is, I'm also just full disclosure. I'm not just oh, London, you over it.
No, I asked.
There were just 3 people on a video chat. I just don't know, and we're not in person. Oh, that's the Roomba. Roomba scared me for a little bit. I was like, what is that? But because we're not in person, we can't make eye contact or anything like that. I mean, we can make eye contact here, but you can't turn to me and be like, oh, that's a good idea, or we're turning to each other.
Yeah.
I'm just here to say I think she's talking about my idea, but I'm not so sure. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Yeah, for me, it's really, and that's kind of because every time when I had to stop my book, it's because it just started feeling not just robotic, but like a robot that had its gears starting to knock together. So
Okay. So
it's
definitely it's been over edited.
Yeah. So no, we can definitely. That's like I mentioned. I love editing, so I'd love to talk about it. It's just
let's definitely make that one of our subjects then, because I'd love to discuss. Okay, well, how would you go back and try to fix your over editing, because aren't you essentially editing again? So that would be a good thing to touch on, and I'm sure you have some good things to.
I'm just going to do one word now, and it's going to be very terrifying. So I'm going to do it with dramatic music as well. Rewrite it. Da, da, da! Yeah.
Yay!
It sounds terrifying, but it's
got to be
done. The thing that people don't understand about rewriting a book is it's not destructive. And this is it sounds very counterintuitive, but it's not a destructive way of editing, and that's what I love about it. Because it's exactly what you said to me last week when you said, just write it, experiment, see if it works.
It's true.
And you can also, so that's what a rewrite is, because you're not deleting the previous draft of the book.
Right.
You're just actually
It's a whole new page.
Yeah, you're just seeing if you write it maybe from a bit of another point of view, maybe just a bit more, a bit more freely.
Yeah.
Not really
It's
worrying so
funny.
much about the structures, because some people actually have very, very popular books that are written completely in like what do you call it? Flow of thoughts.
Yeah. I know what you're trying to.
Yeah, like stream of conscious. There's the word.
There it is.
But like so it's not wrong to write that way necessarily. It's just to write, if that's the book you want to write the best version possible of that book. But the thing is, if once I kind of, it sounds very dramatic and like, oh my gosh, but like once you've gotten to the point where you kind of killed the soul in your book, the only way to get it back is going to be by rewriting with the soul in, because you can't, it's not something that you can retrofit into a book that has already been like killed, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And so what you can do is like I said, just read through it after like a month or two, if you haven't worked on it recently. Just reread it and then go point for point. This is what I liked. I like this character. I like this character. I like this about these characters. I like this about these scenes. And then start choosing which scenes to include, and then just use that as a spine, and then fill in the blanks, and just have fun doing that. And have, like, seriously, it sounds, but have fun. That's kind of the point. If you enjoy what you're writing, someone out there who's going to read your book will enjoy it as well. Yeah. That's kind of the point. If you don't even enjoy it, then nobody else is going to enjoy it.
Well, yeah, thanks for touching on that. That'll be a good subject for us to talk about one week.
Absolutely. Okay. I just quickly want to read through some comments that came in again. Amber says, yeah, I had to write down what I revealed in books 2 and 3, so I don't reveal it in book 1. Yeah, I have to do that as well. And also, every time I have to write like a new book in the series, I reread all of my previous books because of these heavy edits, because I don't want to pick up a string thinking that it's something that I paved the way for in book 1, and then I actually edit it out at some point and I forgot about it. So I read my books and then pick up what I see that I left behind, to just be sure that I'm not like confusing anyone. And then Sarah says, I'm not a series person, so I have had less concern over time, which is nice. Yeah, I'm sure that is really nice. I can only imagine, because every time I say, you know what, I'm going to take a rest from my series by writing one standalone book, by the time I'm done with that book, there's a sequel in the line. So, yeah. So I wish I understand that idea of, oh, it's so nice to write a standalone, because I kind of feel that way probably like for maybe 2/3 of the book, but by the end of it, no longer. So, yeah, very frustrating. Do you guys prefer series, or do you prefer standalones to write?
Mine is very similar to yours, Misha. I'll be like, this is one book. Halfway through, I'm like, nope, this is at least 2 books. Wait, now I have something that could break off, and this character is going to get their own story.
3 books and a spin-off.
My book, well, currently the one that I finished is a standalone, although I was wanting to make it a trilogy, but I was like, no, I don't want to do that. If I wanted to do anything, I wanted to be a standalone, and then like a spin-off of one of the characters. Except be like he's the problem child of the story, so like I want him to do like a redemption arc just for him, like just for like another thing. I can't kill him off. I love him too much. So like that's like an idea of mine, but I don't know. I'm gonna like probably like rewrite some stuff, get some stuff out of the way. But it's most likely gonna be a standalone. Like I'm probably not gonna stress about it too much. I think everybody's going through enough stress already in that book that they just want to be alone. The other book, the Witches one, that one is going to be a trilogy. However, it's not about the same characters. It's like companions. They're in the same universe. They all kind of like mention each other, like maybe every now and then, but like it's all like kind of like different stories in the same universe. So like there's still like some freedom and creativity. It's just they're all just standalones together.
I like that.
Okay, so we talk too much. I just realized we like completely. We say we're doing this in an hour, and then it's like, oh my word! But then
we should call it something else instead of a write-in because we like talking about our writers' topics. So maybe you could call it something else. Writers, I don't know. For a writer, sometimes I don't have any words or ideas. Writers talk.
Writers sometimes.
Something like the weekly writers chat and sometimes writing.
Sometimes writing.
Sometimes.
Maybe. Will we write? And then in the description, will these writers actually write tonight?
Will we write more at 8?
What nonsense will they discuss this time to make sure that they don't actually get around to writing?
I love that.
So, now the question is, do you guys want to do a like 10-minute writing sprint at least, so that we can say we wrote once?
Maybe, yeah.
I'm up for it.
Words.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to count down from 5 seconds, and then I'm going to start the 10-minute sprint. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. And time. How to do?
Decent.
Good. And you, Maria?
Yeah, I did decent too.
Good, good, good. Congratulations. Well done. We got one right and done. So we can call this a writing. It's like one writing sprint. No longer false advertising. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say goodnight. I pushed this out as absolutely far as I could. But I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
And thanks so much to everyone who joined in the live chat tonight and who watched, because you guys, you don't understand how much this extra support actually means to me. It's awesome. So, and I'm sure London and Maria also enjoyed actually not talking into the endless dark void that is the internet. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you very much. And I think we will be back again same time next week, 5 p.m. South African time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. Am I correct? All right, fantastic. And then, yeah, and we will be probably continuing our conversation, but more along the lines of actual self-care tips and what we do about self-care as writers and how we take care of ourselves as writers and why it's important to take care of ourselves and so on. So I think it's going to be really cool. And if you guys have any questions that you want to ask into the for the chats that we should discuss, please do leave it in the comments. I think unless you guys are part of the writing group that hosts this whole writing thing, then you can just send me a Discord message. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. And then, yeah, just be blessed and be safe and take care of yourselves.
Woo!
Woo! Love you lots. Bye.
Yay.
Bye.